Imagine if I had done any of this.
Now, just for a moment, try to imagine if Obama had tried any of this. In fact, think about what would happen if any modern Democrat tried anything like what Trump has been doing. I mean, just imagine if in 2012, Obama deported a record-breaking 419,000 immigrants, of which between 75 and 84% were denied due process. Imagine if Obama deported 3 million people in just his first term, deporting more than his predecessor, George W., deported during his entire 8 years in office, uprooting millions of families, tearing apart communities, brutalizing our comrades, friends, and fellow workers in the millions. Now, Trump would peak at 267,000 in his first term, a number Biden would easily surpass. Though I do recall there was a program that intensely benefited refugees from Africa, especially ones that were investing in clean energy. But now that I think about it, it wasn't so much refugees as it was just Elon Musk. I mean, it wasn't so much a program to benefit refugees as just a giveaway to the richest man on earth. So I'm guessing that's probably why there wasn't any backlash. Now that I think of it, that makes a lot more sense. Now, I understand if you are living in a hot spot for heat waves, like I am, it might be kind of hard to concentrate when you're sitting through a heat wave in early June in Minnesota. It's going to be a long summer. Despite this, just try to concentrate and imagine if Obama killed civilians by ordering drone strikes or by providing massive amounts of weapons and military funding to an apartheid state like Israel. Imagine if Obama had enabled the war crimes of Saudi Arabia by continuing to ally with them and by selling them cluster munitions that were used on civilians. I mean, could you really imagine Obama running a campaign that promised change for the working poor while the federal minimum wage remained at $7.25 since it was last raised at the beginning of his term in 2009, despite 44% of American workers, that's 53 million Americans, being low-wage workers. Recently, a bill to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, indexed to inflation, was proposed and introduced to Congress by far-right Trump sycophant Josh Hawley. While this would be a win for workers, obviously more reformist than revolutionary, the far-right building popular support by delivering on material gains is a great way to win support for more fascism. And Obama would even bail out the industries that discriminated against black homeowners, where they gambled and lost in the stock market. So not only did they get rewarded for their questionably legal, definitely immoral behavior that was irresponsible, but they were deemed to be too big to fail. And the rational decision there would be to nationalize them and to increase regulations so that this couldn't happen again, rather than just giving them a handout. Or in the very least, giving that bailout to the homeowners. And this was an incredibly racist policy. Half of all black wealth was destroyed in the housing crisis, in that recession. And this was not a lot of wealth to begin with compared to with white wealth. The recession did not hit and hurt everybody equally. And the authors of that were rewarded by Obama and his administration. And they would have been rewarded if the Republicans were in office, because we have one party with two wings and both are capitalists. They just have different strategies to get us to vote for them. Hopefully what I'm getting across is the necessity of class consciousness and intersectional feminism to any form of liberation, because if you don't have that lens of class, you ultimately end up with a nonsensical movement like what we have with neoliberal feminism or the anti-racism of capitalism, where you have more diverse oppressors and you have a token black president who's bailing out the banks that are using racist lending practices to exploit and steal the wealth of black families specifically, because capitalism needs to divide the working class along these lines. I suppose it wouldn't have to be racial lines, but being that we live in a society that's based on things like white supremacy and patriarchy, they're going to go for the low-hanging fruit. And until we have class consciousness, we cannot have a united working class that fights against the root of this oppression, which at the moment is capitalism. Now, you can obviously have patriarchy and racism without capitalism, but currently our system of political economy has a hierarchy that is rooted in capitalism. So we must liberate ourselves from capitalism in addition to all these things. And you can't do one without the other. You can't understand one without the other. I want to make very clear that it is not my intent to deny or diminish or in any way mock Obama in claiming that as a black man he is treated very differently than he would be treated if he was a white conservative man like Trump. And if you don't believe that there is significant racial bias against even someone in a position like Obama was, I would ask you, just imagine now, sincerely, if Obama had been caught on a hot mic talking about how he can get away with and enjoys getting away with groping white women's genitals just because he's famous. Imagine what the backlash to him would have been if he had said that rather than Trump. Imagine if he had a long string of credible claims of sexual harassment and inappropriate behavior towards women and underage girls like Trump did. Imagine if Obama had been a co-defendant with Jeffrey Epstein on a case involving the rape of a 14-year-old girl. And imagine if Obama had appointed the man who gave Epstein a sweetheart deal to keep him out of prison to his cabinet. Imagine if several Trump delegates and local campaign managers were charged with and convicted of child sexual abuse or possession of child pornography. And hopefully the point I'm getting across is not that Obama being treated very differently than a white conservative man would be is not acceptable, and that when we criticize him, it's very important that we criticize him as an imperialist, not as a black person, and that we never resort to the bigotry of the far right, even if we are talking about our oppressors. And ultimately, what the owning classes want is to distract us with a culture war to divide the working class, rather than talking about the class war we actually need to have. And in this class war, Obama and Trump and the parties they represent are on the same side. It is not the side of the working class. It is not the side that represents black liberation or elimination of gender discrimination or LGBTQ liberation, because liberation is always a revolutionary far left movement. It must be intersectional. Ultimately, the policies of the capitalist parties speak for themselves. Don't look so much at what they campaign on and what they promise and what they say in their speeches. That's the lie that they're telling to get our votes. Look at what they actually do. Look at who they support when the interest of the working class and the owning classes are in conflict. Who do they side with? Who funds their campaigns? Do you really think that they would be able to get elected if they weren't able to get corporate funding? They wouldn't even be able to get on the ballot if they didn't support capitalism. It's just the way our current system is. It is not democratic because it does not include economic democracy, which is a very important facet of democracy. And until we have a working class party that is fighting for socialism independent from the capitalist party, we will not have true democracy in the United States. And that is what we need to build. We need to have a class conscious, intersectional, working class, independent, multi-tendency socialist party in the US. And luckily, there is one. And you should consider joining it if you agree with the principles. Look up Socialist Party USA, and I hope that we can work together in the future.